Today, I want to talk to the woman who looks high functioning on the outside and secretly feels like she is one more stress away from breaking. Now, if that is you, I want you to know upfront that you are not dramatic, you are not weak, your body is not betraying you. Most likely, your body has been keeping score long before your mind was ready to admit that something was wrong and needed to change. So, this episode is about that moment, the moment your body says enough before your identity is willing to. And I'm going to share my own story of how that looked in my life and the first somatic tool that helped me to stop pretending that I was fine. So, if you're driving, if you're walking, maybe you're hiding in your car between your responsibilities, then take a breath. For as long as I can remember, I have been an entrepreneur. And I started my first business at 23. It was called CG Dance. I was full-time teaching dance at the gym, for the city, at events, and I had teachers working for me under contract. And in those early years, entrepreneurship actually felt pretty safe. I was living in an apartment above my parents in the city of Rotterdam that I knew very well. My support system was living right downstairs, and I knew the language, the culture, the streets. Financially, the pressure was not high. If something would went wrong, I would land in a very soft place, so to say. So yes, I was working hard, I was creative, I was building, but my nervous system felt held. The foundations were there. The pillars in my life were solid enough to lean on. But that changed when I hit 30. At 30, I stepped into my first deep, serious relationship. And I did what many women do. I rearranged my entire life around that next chapter. I moved, after traveling the world for 2 years, I moved with him to Puerto Rico. And the safety net of my family home, of course, was already gone. We started building a business together, a tourism business. And it wasn't my own little venture anymore. Now it was a shared dream, a shared livelihood in a place that was new and unpredictable for me. And I had always loved the unknown. I loved the freedom, the traveling, taking random jobs just to experience new cultures. But this time, the unknown came with bills, with big responsibilities, and a relationship on the line. So I became highly focused on making this tourism business a success. We lived in Puerto Rico, and honestly, there was a lot of magic there. We offered salsa dance experiences, Afro percussion drum workshops, jungle tours, swimming in waterfalls, surf lessons, and many other tours across the island. And on the outside, it looked like a dream life, right? Sun, music, culture, people flying in for their holidays and leaving with beautiful memories that we helped create. And we worked really hard, and it paid off in a very visible way. At one point, we became number one in our category on TripAdvisor. And when that happened, things exploded. Bookings came in faster. We needed to expand the team. We had to move from one vehicle to a bigger one to carry more guests, and it was rapid growth. And that is the part that everyone celebrates, right? Like, look at you, you are killing it. And at the same time, we made a big move at a home. We left the tiny apartment and moved into a bigger house, and we decided to flip it into a guest house. We recycled materials, we did the renovations ourselves, we painted inside, outside, put a new kitchen in, and turned it into this creative, welcoming space. So picture this. During the day, running tours and experiences across the island, and in between, I was covered in paint, hammer in a hand, making this house into a guest space. So it was intense, but it was also fun, and I was young, I had the energy. And I still had a sense of adventure, and I loved that. I was ambitious, but I normalized a pattern that many of you will recognize. You're traveling, but you're never really being off again. I would go on a so-called time off, and I still be checking in every day, answering messages, managing the business from the phone, the laptop, and there was no closing the door at 5 p.m. like an employee, and separating work from home. The work and the home and the relationship and my identity, they were all braided together. And that became my standard, my baseline. And I told myself, this is what building a dream looks like. This is what entrepreneurs do. And then I became a mother. And instead of slowing down, I did what so many women do as well. I just added motherhood to my existing workload like it was just one more line on the to-do list. I tried to squeeze my entire business into the nap times, I remember that, into the little cracks of the day. I would be holding my baby, managing a home, keeping a relationship alive, and trying to keep the business not just running, but growing. And I did not remove anything from my plate. I just stacked more on. And for a while, I could kind of keep going because high functioning women are very good at adapting to levels of tension that would knock other people down. And we normalize stress. We call it responsibility or being grateful, or we ignore the whispers of our body. But then the hurricanes came in 2017, the island got hit, and everything changed. In a very short period of time, we lost almost everything that we built. It was a business, it was a home, the infrastructure we invested in, and the daily life that we knew was stripped away. And this was my first big, undeniable survival season. My nervous system flipped into constant alert, the fight, flight, or freeze. I was trying to rebuild life from the ground up, process loss, figure out money, take care of a child. Yes, I had a husband at that time. He did his part. But in this episode, I'm shining a light on my experience as a woman, because you might hear yourself in the way I handled it. What happens in a long survival season is that chronic stress starts to feel like your personality. You think, this is just who I am now. This is just how life is. And you get used to a certain tension in your body. You get used to a certain mental speed. You get used to carrying 10 things at once. For me, it showed up as snapping easily. I was irritated a lot of the time. And there was sleep deprivation because, of course, small child, big stress. And my desire for intimacy dropped. I had joint pains, and eventually my body started to speak through my skin, and I developed eczema. Now, for a lot of us, it has to become physical, unfortunately, before we take it seriously. Think about eczema, migraines, digestive issues, panic attacks, chronic fatigue. Whatever form it takes, it is your body saying, I cannot carry this anymore. So my body spoke first, and my mind caught on later. When I started to realize this was not just a rough patch, but an unsustainable pattern, I had to confront myself with some really hard truths. One of them was about perfectionism and unrelenting standards. I felt very responsible for doing everything right, being the best mother, the best wife, the best business partner, cooking beautiful meals, keeping the house clean, managing the details, being emotionally available. And I did not choose myself. I did not choose my hobbies, my downtime, my joy. When I did try to rest, I felt guilty. If I was not productive, a voice in me said, you're dropping the ball. And looking back, the irony is quite painful because I was trying to be the best version of me for everyone else, that I was actually not being the best version for myself, for my kids, or my partner. I was just stretched thin. So what changed? there was not one single movie moment, unfortunately. There were many small moments where my body whispered no, and I kept overriding it. But there was a very clear turning point when I stopped pretending that I was fine. And for me, that turning point included a very big decision, and it was leaving the relationship, filing for divorce, and choosing to continue life on my own. Now, practically, that was not an easy decision. There were logistics, finances, parenting, immigration, all these things. But I felt peace. I finally chose peace over performance. And I'm not telling this story so that you listen and think, okay, I have to leave my marriage or quit my job. No, that's not the point. Not everyone can or should walk away from their entire situation, okay? What I'm saying is that your nervous system is always speaking to you. Sometimes it would whisper, slow down, set a boundary, ask for help, stop saying yes to everything. And when we do not listen to those smaller messages, our body turns up the volume. And for me, it turned up the volume through chronic stress, physical symptoms, and eventually the realization that the life I had built was not one my body could keep living in without breaking. So what was this first somatic tool that helped me start shifting this? It was something very simple. It was an honest body check-in. I started actually asking my body questions, not my thoughts, not my stories, but my body. And I would sit down, put my feet on the floor, place one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly, and breathe. Nothing fancy. Just 3, 4, 5 slow breaths into my lower ribs. And then I would ask one question at a time. Where am I right now on a scale from completely overwhelmed to being at peace and happy? Is there anywhere in my body that feels tight? It's burning or buzzing or that's numb. The first somatic tool was not a big ceremony or some complex technique. It was choosing to listen and believe my body's answer. If my breath was shallow, if my stomach was in knots, and I kept hearing no around the decision, I began to honor that if I would hear no. Sometimes that meant I had to show up, sometimes I had to slow down, but maybe I would set a boundary around how long. Maybe I would ask for support. Maybe I would take 10 minutes to shake, cry, breathe, and then re-enter instead of pushing through on empty. So somatic work is not always glamorous, guys. It's often these micro choices, thousands of them, that teach your nervous system a new normal. And maybe you recognize yourself in this story, right? Maybe you are in your own version of building the dream while your body quietly keeps score. Maybe you have already had a physical wake-up call like I did. Joint pain, skin issues, anxiety, exhaustion. And maybe you're listening and you're thinking, I'm not at the breaking point yet, but I can feel that I'm on the road. Well, if that is you, I want to offer you a very simple starting point. So tonight or sometime this week, sit somewhere where you won't be interrupted for 3 minutes. Put your feet on the floor. Put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Close your eyes. Take 5 slow breaths. And on each exhale, imagine letting go 5% of the pressure that you put on yourself. Then ask yourself these 2 questions. Where am I overperforming to earn what I already have? And what is one small way I can choose myself a little more this week? And do not go for the huge life overhaul. Look for a little degree shift. Maybe it's ordering takeout instead of cooking. Because cooking a perfect meal when you're exhausted, is it really going to pay off? Maybe it's asking a friend to take the kids for an hour so you can lie on the floor and breathe or cry and not perform. These small acts, they might seem very insignificant, but they are very important. Proof that safety and rest and truth matter as much as productivity and performance. And as we close today, I want you to remember that your body is never your enemy. The symptoms are not betrayal, but they are messages from the part of you that is still fighting for your life to feel aligned. Now, my story is one version of how that can look. Yours will have its own details, its own timing, its own decisions. But if you are that high-functioning woman who is scared that she is one more stress away from breaking, I want you to know that there's another way of living. A way where success does not require self-abandonment. Repeat it for yourself. Your nervous system and the message is not an obstacle to push through. Where you can be ambitious and tender with yourself at the same time is so important. So if this episode resonated, if something landed for you, if something clicked, let me know. And remember that a system in survival is not sustainable. Okay? I want to thank you for listening to a Cinderella story with a twist. And if you do want to go deeper into this kind of somatic nervous system based rebuild, you can contact me to check out how you could work with me. Or you can download the Sacred Reset Workbook as a gentle starting point to rebuild from a place of safety and relaxation. Know that you have love and permission to put some of that weight down, okay? Thank you.